With that, and I'll also defer to my members of the board, I should say, and thankful to have Ms. Evans here this morning. But I think there's been, I'll put it modestly, inquiry around the board, the finances and the operations of the organization. And prior to the arrival of Mr. Kelly, it was heightened with the sudden departure of the executive director, Mr. Rose. And, there was a lag and nonetheless, things weren't clear. And as a part of this transparency and once again, this shift as we move forward and move the organization forward, we asked for an external third-party review based on the information that we could access. That's one of the larger converse items that we'll speak to, I'm certain during Ms. Evans' actual report. But based on the items in which she's been privy to date, she's going to provide us a quick synopsis as to what she has learned. And then ultimately, I think that is going to be the right sizing aspect of things of how we proceed within the organization. And, primarily, I know we've worked through, collections, and typically that's been the main driver as far as operations. We've been able to solicit funds from other organizations. I know for first and foremost, LaSalle University has supported this organization, but then ultimately through grants. And whether that be through the Department of Community and Economic Development in Harrisburg, but then also through our own City of Philadelphia's Commerce Department. So that has, my understanding of once again, of the operating budget, that has been kind of the means as to which the organization has been able to work forward. I think secondly to that, it has also been the means to be able to offset any salary expenses, and then ultimately whether it's any interns and or any contracts. So with that,
Joe, I just want to add, I think it's important to know that the bulk of it comes from assessment.
Mm-hmm.
And does everyone in the room understand that process? I'm speaking mostly to our visitors, guests. Are there any questions around how the GSSD is funded? So people are aware that the board members are volunteers, and everyone's aware of how the assessment, if you don't, please let us know, and Jamar can give a quick explanation of the assessment process.
Well, the board members aren't entirely volunteer. We have one of them on the phone that's a paid city employee. We have another one.
A role on the board as GSSD board members are volunteers.
The one on the board is not a board member.
She got paid for her service on the
Our
board.
role
Yeah, but she's
as
a paid
service.
city employee of Councilman Bass's.
Which
Sir,
provides a resource of information so that we could better compete and be prepared to try to gain city grants and opportunities that come through the Commerce Department, as well as council.
I'm making reference to the fact that the board is made up not necessarily of folks that are independent of Councilman Bass's.
Well, I just want to clarify that none of us receive a paycheck for being on this board.
Well,
Let's just
that
clarify.
could be argued that a city employee who is paid by Councilman Bass, employed by Councilman Bass, is
Well,
in
none of us
effect,
walk out of here
in
with
effect
a
under
paycheck
her
for being on the
jurisdiction.
board. Jamar, can you
doesn't
please
have the
go
independence
over-
necessary to represent this community, is what I am saying.
Excuse me, Greg. I have to take
And
issue.
neither does Charles Richardson for that matter.
Charles?
That was also an employee of Councilman
This is not the
Bass.
place to
Several times we've talked about the makeup of the board, the importance of the board's
Let's be
makeup.
productive here.
It's duly noted.
Let's
For
be
the
productive,
record,
Greg.
what I would like to happen is for Jamar just to give a quick, just a synopsis of the assessment process before you talk. Thank
So
you.
the organization is primarily funded through an assessment, the rate of which, it's currently around 12%, is calculated by the Office of Property Assessment of the City of Philadelphia through technical calculation, mathematical calculation that assesses the total value of properties, the number of properties within the district, and comes up with an appropriate percentage that a majority would be able to contribute to provide public space maintenance services on the commercial corridor, is the short end of it.
You have a question?
In our collection.
Is there a list of the exact properties that are assessed?
Yes, that's not public information though,
Why is that not public information?
because it's proprietary information.
Why is it proprietary?
because it's personal business information, Allison.
But it's public information.
So
because it's on the
information
the city
about
website.
properties that you can access through the city website, that's public, and you're more than welcome to research every property along the corridor and get publicly available information. But GSSD is not going to publish property owner information.
So in short, what
And
you're
I
saying is.
understand
Just
that
the
we have been
address.
advised by Commerce not to do that.
Can we just have the addresses of the properties, so the property owners know that they're in or they're out?
You can access it via the property assessment website. It's publicly
But
available.
how do they know if they're
Understood.
on your list of
Because
assessed properties?
I'm assuming there's a zip code that would resonate or align with GSSD.
I
We-
have gone and seen other,
I have a resolution.
resolutions.
I have a resolution when you're done.
I've seen.
We will post the boundaries of the district as well as the written outlay of the boundaries of the district that we submit to council for our reauthorization approval, and that will better help a property owner understand where they fit within the
That
district.
does not give us
It does.
an understanding and a check and balance of what's on that map and what you've allocated to be part of your district. I have looked at other legislation for other districts, and they list all of the property addresses of each and every property that is assessed in their services district.
Right.
And I would suggest that we do that, so that we're not leaving out anybody, and there's no question about who's in the district or who's not in the district.
Can I make a suggestion, Allison, if you provide that information to Jamar, in terms of the other special services districts that have that information available, and I think that maybe if the board could consider that, and that could be an item for business in the future.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Especially if you have an example.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd like to know, and this is a question for Commerce, what is the normal recommendation as applied across the board in the city of Philadelphia to bids with regards to that question?
So the bids that are municipal authorities, the state law doesn't require that their plan name all of the properties, but it does require that you specify boundaries and the class of properties that are going to be assessed.
Yes.
So the bids that are nonprofit bids in the city, the state law requires that as part of their city council ordinance that they provide a property list. So that's why there's a discrepancy between the two.
So who is required to provide a property list?
The bids within the city that are more nonprofits.
That are nonprofit?
That are set up as nonprofits. So, like Mount Airy's bid
Yes,
is a
that's right.
nonprofit, and
Good
Chestnut
example.
Hill. So their ordinance does. The state law requires that the ordinance list every property, but that's not the case with municipal authorities.
Do we recommend it?
So it's an issue of the classification of the organization.
I think that the municipal authority, if a citizen requested that information, that's something that you guys would have to evaluate as a municipal authority, whether you provide it or not.
Well, we get regular inquiries asking if we're in or not, and we do respond
Right.
accordingly.
Right.
You have a
Yes.
comment? Can you say your name?
Karen Fegley, also with the Commerce Department. So I just wanted to further clarify. What Dennis is saying is you are not required by the law to do it because you're organized as a municipal authority. But I think we are leaning towards best practice would be to publicize, and I think it's something for the board to consider whether there's what the pros and cons of just going public with the list, recognizing that the other bids in the city that are organized under the Neighborhood Improvement District law do publicize it. Maybe ask them if there's any pros
Yeah,
and
and I
cons
guess
to it.
by publicizing, what I'm referring to specifically is in the legislation itself. So in the legislation itself, when you get reauthorized as a nonprofit bid, you must list every single property. Municipal authorities aren't subject to that same requirement.
And I would just add for clarification as well, the website that you currently have doesn't have it on there, but the website that you had prior, I remember there did used to be an attached PDF that listed the addresses. 'Cause when I first started working at Germantown United, it was something that was given to me to look at to like better understand how it's going to work with the special services district.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. Anything else to add, Jamar?
Absolutely.
Jamar, I think it's important to the collection rate where we are prior to the
Um,
financial.